everybody, I'm Jack Hammer. Wanted to come in here real quick and give you an instant reaction to the 49ers 17-11 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. The 49ers victory was a masterclass in resilience. The 49ers were facing a difficult defense with a raucous crowd that was on hand for the Eagles home opener, and they just needed to weather the storm early to stay in the game, and that's what they did. Once things cleared up late in the first half, the 49ers dominated throughout the remainder of the game to move to 2-0 on the season. Let's take a look at some of the things that I had talked about as keys to the game and how they played out. The first one was Kyle Shanahan staying committed to the running game, and he did that. San Francisco struggled to get their running game early on, but they were able to stick with it, and things began to open up after halftime. Just continuing to pound that ball up there. Eventually, they were able to find some room. Didn't have any of those big runs. Last week, Elijah Mitchell was able to carry the ball for over 100 yards in his debut. This week, he was held to only 42 on 17 carries, but he did have a long of 10. And as I mentioned, that came after halftime because that's really when things got going for this offense. Mitchell would eventually leave the game after the third quarter. He had a little bit of a shoulder injury. He was questionable to return, but things kind of fell, awkwardly for the 49ers here when Trey Sermon got knocked out of the game. Mitchell was able to step back in and finish off the game for the 49ers. And, the other running back was JaMycal Hasty. He was the other featured back right now. The 1-2 combination for the 49ers definitely is Mitchell and Hasty. And Sermon's kind of the third low man on the totem pole, it looks like. Hasty came in. He played good. He had a really nice run there early in the fourth quarter, a nice 21-yard run on a toss sweep to the right side. And that helped set the 49ers up for their second touchdown of the game and really what put the game away for them. The primary concern, though, with Hasty has always been his ability to hold on to the football. He's had issues with fumbles throughout his time in San Francisco in his first year and a half here. And he was able to come out and, unfortunately he had that fumble on that toss sweep late in the fourth quarter. They're trying to run the ball out. They're deep in their own territory. Garoppolo tosses him the ball and bounces out of his hands. They really dodged the bullet right there. That could have really been changed the whole complexion of the game around if that ball hadn't bounced out of bounds. So the 49ers got a really lucky break on that one. And that's part of why we didn't really see much of Hasty for the rest of it is they, went to close it out. They brought in Sermon right after that. And then once Sermon got knocked out, they didn't go back to Hasty. They actually brought in Trenton Cannon, who was a running back that they just signed earlier in this week. He probably hardly even knows what he's supposed to be doing in terms of the offensive plays. But he was active because he was the kick returner today. Also, when you're talking about the running game, you can't go talk about the 49ers running game today without mentioning Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers quarterback, I know he's not exciting. He's not going to put up any kind of highlight reel or anything like that. And he did only gain 20 yards on 11 carries. But, he had that fourth quarter touchdown on the sneak that proved to be the game winner. And this might all sound strange, we're talking so much about the quarterback sneak. But if you go back and you watch those games, you remember what the 49ers were like in 2020, they'd get into short yardage situations and they couldn't even run a quarterback sneak. Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard just weren't able to do it. And even though and it sounds strange, but like I said, a quarterback sneak being a big deal in the 49ers offense, it was. And it proved to be a big part of what the 49ers did today and how they were able to accomplish this win and really pull it out. Like I said, this was a tough game, a lot tougher than I thought. I mean, I felt like it was going to be a little bit of a struggle, but I didn't expect it to be quite the struggle that it was. I had the 49ers scoring 24 points, and they only able to get 17. So there was definitely some struggles there. I think, the crowd noise and all those types of things contributed to it, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So that's the first one. Let's look at real quick. I know we got a bunch of folks over here in the comments, and I like this one. Luke jumps in. He says, "Never say hi, Jack, on a plane," and he's right. Never. If you ever see me on a plane, don't yell out my name. Yeah, and hi, because you'll get yourself in a lot of trouble that way. That's a really good joke. I love that one. Trust me, I've used that a few times. Just taking a look at it, doesn't look like we have very many questions, so we'll just continue on. Let's jump down to number 2. And my second question was, can the 49ers passing game take advantage of the opportunities? And I would say this was a definite yes and no. I think when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers, they look good. On paper, he finished with numbers. He was 22 of 30, 189 yards and a touchdown. But the game was more difficult than the stat line would suggest. The combination of the crowd noise and the pressure from Philadelphia's pass rush definitely played a big factor early in the game. And they didn't let Garoppolo. He looked really unsettled for the majority throughout the first quarter and into the second. Um, and part of that, was the cause for Garoppolo not being able to connect on a number of throws down the field throughout the early portion of the game. There was definitely some opportunities. Two that I can think of right off the top of my head was he had Brandon Ayuk on a deep dig route, had a little bit of pressure coming off the right, but he had enough time to really just step in and drive that ball to him, and he didn't do that. Overthrew it. Got lucky that it wasn't picked off by the free safety. And then in the second quarter, right after the penalty uh, on the wide receiver, Mohamed Sanu, that bounced him back. It was a 15-yard illegal crackback. He had Trent Sherfield wide open on a deep out route that would have pulled him to like a second and about 5 or something like that at that point. And he missed a bad overthrow him and out of bounds. And so there were some bad misses. So that's why I say yes and no. Because really what happened was late in the first half, Kyle Shanahan, he turned to the screen game, and that was able to, slow down and take advantage of the pass rush of the Eagles. They were able to get the ball out quick. Those guys are getting up the field, get it out there, and that pass rush will run right by your offensive linemen, who then were able to block downfield, and they were able to move down and get a really nice possession, especially right before halftime. And Garoppolo was kind of able to start to get into a groove. That last possession, where they scored there. A lot of screens, a lot of that kind of stuff to kind of get them going, but then they're just short of midfield. I think they're about the 49-yard line of the Eagles. 25 seconds left to go in the half, and Garoppolo was able to rip that ball to Deebo Samuel over the middle, about 15 yards downfield, and then Samuel does the rest of the work and takes it down to the Philadelphia 11-yard line. A really nice 40-yard completion right there. A huge play in the game, because then on 1st and 10 at the 11 on the next play, Garoppolo would hit Juwan Jennings for a touchdown and give the 49ers a lead, and they wouldn't look back from that point. So with the whole way that this game played out up until that point, for Garoppolo to be able to lead that drive down the field, put the ball into the end zone, and go up 7-3 at the half, that just completely changed the complexion of the game. Everything turned from that point. So it was quite interesting the way that this game turned. And I agree with this. Ekim says, not a perfect game, but I can't be too critical over a win. And hello to you too. Thanks for joining. I know you always call in on our Tuesdays on our Niner Chatter shows. So I appreciate you jumping on here and following me today. But yeah, no, I think there's going to be more criticism as the week goes on. As we look at this game, there's definitely things to be critical about. But what you've got to look at is this was the home opener for Philadelphia. The 49ers were in a tough situation from that standpoint. They struggled early on, and they just kind of weathered the storm. They got through it and played real well to pull this one out. And then Chris asks about Deommodore Lenoir and how he looked. I'm going to get to that one here in just a second. We'll get down there. I think that's going to come up in just a minute. But first off, I want to talk about the run defense. Well, you know what? Since you asked me about Deommodore Lenoir, let's hit that one right now. So the 49ers defense be able to rally to the football? And I said yes on this one. I think they did. They did a real good job of rallying to the ball throughout the game. And that really seemed to kind of shut down the Eagles offense. Jalen Hurts completed over 77% of his passes last week against Atlanta. This week against 49ers, he was only able to complete 52. How did this happen? Well, when you look at it, really what happened was the 49ers showed the ability to stop the screen game. They did a really good job early on of like I said, rallying to the football. And what that did was it forced Hurts to have to play quarterback. Hurts in the second half was only 4 of 8 for 39 yards. And when you look at Hurts' game overall, he had 190 yards passing total today. He was 12 of 23, I believe, was his final completion tally, but 190 yards passing. 91 of those came off that deep throw to Quez Watkins late in the first half. And, if you remember how that whole thing played out, they had that really nice ball, 91 yards, and the Eagles would end up getting 0 points on the possession. 49ers would just do a amount of really good goal line stand there. Beautiful. And that would really prove to be the total turning point of the game, because from there on out, the 49ers took that ball from their own 97 yards, go down the field, score a touchdown, and go into the halftime at 7-3. Just really nice job by the defense there. And As far as Diamond Lenore, I thought he played really really well. He's going to struggle. He's not the fastest of the DBs on the 49ers. That's partly why he was drafted in the 5th round. But he does a really good job. He just competes. If this was Jim Harbaugh's team instead of Kel Shanahan, I'm pretty sure that's the phrase that he'd be talking about, because that guy just competes his tail off over and over again. And he had a couple of bad balls that went over his head. He got lucky on the one that was out of bounds, but other than that, I thought he looked really good. Like I said, he's a rookie. He's a 5th rounder. The guy's playing really well, and you've got to like that. I know it's a frustration that Ambry Thomas isn't starting, since he was a 3rd round draft pick, or he's not even wasn't even active today. But having a guy like Deommodore Lenoir be able to step up the way he has, that kind of just takes that away just a little bit, I would think. So that answers the question on the Deommodore Lenoir, and also on the 49ers passing defense. The other one was, can the 49ers defense stop the run? And that's a big no. Again, they started out defending the run really well. The first couple of series, they did a really good job of stopping the Philadelphia running game in the middle. But as the game went along, they really started to struggle, and Philadelphia was able to pick up 151 yards on 29 attempts. So a lot of that was Jalen Hurts. I know he had the one big run down the sidelines for about 27 yards. They're kind of in garbage time late when it was 17-3. But really, the takeaway here is that despite allowing over 5 yards per carry, the San Francisco defense, they did a good job of stopping Philadelphia once they moved into scoring possession for the 2nd week in a row. They did that last week against Detroit, and we saw them do that again today against Philadelphia. And I think that's something that we're going to see with this team throughout the season. They're going to be a bend but no break kind of defense. They're going to give up a bunch of yards, but when they get down into that crunch area of the field, they're going to be able to stop teams. And that's where the guys like Nick Bosa, Dee Ford come in, especially if you're having a little bit of problems on the back end. You play soft so that you don't get those big ball throws over the top of you, so you don't get those quick strikes. Make the teams work their way down the field, and then stop them when it's shorter, when you don't have as much room behind you to potentially get beat on. And we saw that in the second half. If you remember, there was one possession where the 49ers punted the ball, and they set up Philadelphia deep in their own territory. And if you remember on that one, the Eagles, I think they ran the ball from their own end zone out across midfield out to about the 40-yard line. It was like 6 or 7 runs in a row. It was a really good job by the Eagles of running the ball. And then for whatever reason, they decided to start throwing it around. And once they started throwing the ball on that possession, that's kind of when that drive stopped. And the 49ers were able to hold them and then get the ball back themselves, and then take it down and score the touchdown. That's when they went up 14-3. So, this 49ers defense is going to be a challenge for fans, I think, because of they're going to be giving up yards. But you just got to realize it's going to be bend, don't break. And against teams like this, it's going to work. It's going to be a little bit more of a struggle when they take on Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and maybe Kyler Murray in a couple of weeks. Although I think Murray is closer to Jalen Hurts than the other two that I just mentioned. So let's look at the last one. And my last one takeaway for today was, can the 49ers minimize penalties? And that's definitely a yes as well, I think. Especially on the offensive side of the ball. That's where that is. Outside of the 15-yard penalty for the illegal crackback block by Mohamed Sanu, the 49ers offense played a really clean game with regards to penalties. In fact, it was the Eagles defense that struggled. On the 49ers' final scoring possession of the game, multiple personal fouls were called against Philadelphia, and that's what kept the drive alive for the 49ers to go down and kick a field goal, that 46-yard field goal by Gould, and go up 17-3. So that's kind of the way that I saw the game. My prediction was 24-16. So at least I had the right winner. My points are off, but if you'd watched some of my shows prior to the game today, you might have heard me mention a couple of times that I thought that the Eagles were going to pick up a lot of yardage, but they weren't going to score a lot of points. They were going to get held to field goals. And that's pretty much what we saw. We saw them move the ball up and down the field. There were a couple of times where they could have kicked field goals, and they didn't. Thankfully for the Niners, because if they had, it probably would have been they would have had that 16 points. They had 2 times where they were in field goal position. One was blocked, and the other time was a goal line stand. So from that standpoint, feel pretty good about it. Just going to look over here real quick, see if there's any questions before I log off for tonight. Injury status. I haven't heard anything on that yet. We'll get more information for you guys on the injury stuff tomorrow. I think, Elijah Mitchell, he had the shoulder, but he came back into the game and was able to finish that off. Uh, the big one, I think this one is going to be Trey Sermon and how he's able to do. That was a really vicious hit that he took to the head. So hopefully he's able to come back from that and feel good. Um, I'm sure he's probably not going to be able to play next week because that looks like a pretty bad one. But uh, as far as the other stuff, Javon Kinlaw looked a little slow today with his knee, but hey, he had made a great play, got up there and made that block, and so definitely happy with the performance. A lot of good things to take away from today. I will definitely be back tomorrow with some more thoughts on the game. We'll have Niner Chatter on Tuesday. So tomorrow I'll be on with Sunil for on the So Real Sunil talk show that he does that we do together every Monday. Real quick before I jump off, Pinor asks my thoughts on Eric Armstead. I think here's the deal. Here's my thought on Armstead, and I'm a guy who personally I don't like the contract that they gave Eric Armstead. I think he's overpaid as a defensive tackle. Because that's really what he is. Eric Armstead's a defensive tackle. When he lines up inside, he is a very good pass rusher. He's a very good player inside. When the 49ers go into their nickel and dime packages, I don't think he could hold up inside all the time as an every down defensive tackle. But when he's in there, he does a very good job of rushing from the middle. And I've never said that he's not. My thing is that he's paid like a defensive tackle, or excuse me, like a defensive end. But his real role and where he plays the best is a defensive tackle. So when you look at his pay and what they're going to be paying him next year and so on and so forth, that whole thing with me and Eric Armstead in particular goes back to, I think that they should have kept a Forrest Buckner over Armstead. But, I can't knock Armstead because I like it today for what he did. He made some really nice plays. There was I think it was a sack by Nick Bosa, and Armstead and Kentavious Street did a great job of getting that push up the middle, collapsing the middle of the pocket, and really creating that sack for Bosa. So those are my thoughts there. And 100%, Chris. Get those throwback unis. Those things are fantastic. Those things are clean. I can't wait to see those on the field next week against the Green Bay Packers. So it should be fun to check that out as well. So that's it from me for today. It's about 3:20, so you guys should have a pretty good second half of these games to watch, these afternoon games. I just want to say thank you to everybody that jumped on and watched this today, and everybody that watches all the other shows that I do. We'll definitely be back. Like I said, I'll be on tomorrow. I got Niner Chatter coming up on Tuesday. Pretty busy schedule this week. Looking forward to bringing you guys a lot of coverage on the 49ers as they head up to their home opener on Sunday at Levi Stadium against the Green Bay Packers. So if you like what you see, please subscribe, like, comment. Just keep hitting those buttons and help to continue to grow this channel. And I appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll be back at you soon.